Do you think AGI is overhyped? No. If we get there, it's probably the most important technology humanity's ever come up with. It will make the internet and computing seem like toys. Good morning, everybody. This is AI with Kyle. I'm going to be running through the latest AI news and updates. There isn't much news today because we are waiting for ChatGPT 5.2, which should be coming out later today. I'll cover it tomorrow on Friday's Live. In the meantime, everyone is holding back. Nothing new is coming out. Very little is happening in the world of AI because I think everyone's waiting to see what ChatGPT come back with in response to Gemini 3, which released a few weeks ago, which led to OpenAI announcing a code red. So we're going to wait and see what they have in terms of 5.2. I wanted to cover something I've been noticing more and more. Not AI negativity, but creeping fear and dread that it is definitely coming for people's jobs. And I'm going to talk about an example from scientists where a lot of advances are being made. New AI tools being deployed in artificial intelligence, things like AlphaFold. This is coming for the jobs of researchers and scientists. There have been posts about how AI can never actually create something novel. It can never create new knowledge. It cannot actually assist in science, etc., etc. Coming from the scientific community, people who seem to be ignoring what is actually happening. They're ignoring the empirical evidence against their training. I wanted to look at that debate, the place of artificial intelligence in science, knowledge creation, and how that aligns with jobs as well. So I'm going to get to that as the main theme of the day. Jed says, I'm sorry I'm late. When is GPT 5.2 coming out? Is it today? Yes, it should be today. So OpenAI always release things on Thursday. That's just their schedule. They always have press conferences on Thursday. Don't know why, but they're sticking to that. And we had a tweet from Sam Altman yesterday hinting at garlic. It was him making some pasta sauce and ChatGPT telling him to add some garlic. Garlic is the code name of whatever is releasing today. We think it is GPT 5.2, but we'll find out later today. It should be, I imagine, it will be about 4 or 5 p.m. UK time, so early in the day in California. Is it going to be better than Gemini 3? It has to be. And they wouldn't release it if it wasn't. So GPT 5.2 is their response to Gemini 3. They need it to be better than Gemini 3. If it did not beat Gemini 3, at least in the benchmarks, it's going to put egg on their face. No reason to rush this launch unless it beats Gemini 3. So we don't know. This is speculative. It's not out yet, but I think highly likely it will beat Gemini 3, at least in the benchmarks. They can fine tune for the benchmarks and focus on beating Gemini 3 specifically. That's probably what they've done because it's only been a week or two since Gemini 3 came out for them to push up their schedule and release a model quickly. We had some internal memos. The Wall Street Journal talked to people inside who said that they think the model release should be delayed and they were overruled by executives. So this is OpenAI just trying to get something out the door in response to Gemini 3. Cool. So let's hop into a couple of pieces of news. One, this is, I think, indicative of the fact that people are starting to take AI very seriously. The NDAA is mandating a new Department of Defense steering committee on artificial general intelligence. So inside of US government, there is a committee being put together to talk specifically about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and what happens when it arrives. It's increasingly becoming a question of not if, but when, and working out what the world post-AGI looks like. And the fact that at the top of I think this is Pentagon, tell me if I'm wrong, the Department of Defense, they are now having these discussions and they're sitting down to work out what this looks like, suggests that this is now being taken as a credible threat to national security. This is only a committee. A version of the annual defense policy bill unveiled by lawmakers Sunday would require Pentagon leadership to form a panel to look at the military implications of artificial general intelligence and other advanced AI capabilities. A lot of people are raising alarm bells that, oh my God, AGI is around the corner. What do the Pentagon know? No, I think this is just civil servants. This is just government trying to get a handle on what the hell is coming. The fact that they're only just discussing this is more worrying to me. I would have hoped they'd been thinking about this before. So we probably will have something approximating AGI in the next couple of years, not necessarily decades, but potentially in the next few years. So for government to only now start to think about what does this mean is a little bit worrying. So it's going to be co-chaired by the Deputy Secretary of Defense and the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staffs. Other members include Service Vice Chiefs, Vice Chief of the National Guard Bureau, and Undersecretaries of Defense and Acquisition and Sustainment, Research and Engineering, Intelligence, Security, and Comptroller Financial. The big question is how much these guys know about the technology. Hopefully they are getting up to scratch on it. And also the Chief Digital and AI Officer, a guy called Dr. Doug Matty, Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Officer. Served as Director of Research for AI and Autonomy at the University of Alabama. He worked at the Rand Corporation. Okay, awesome. So he's definitely a military man, but he has worked in Operation Systems AI. Okay. BS in Computer Engineering, MS in Applied Mathematics, minor in Cryptography, Masters in National Security Studies from the US Army War College, Doctorate in Engineering Systems from MIT. Comes from a technical background, a politician. This is what we tend to do in the UK. We give roles in fields our politicians don't necessarily have any background in, and they get shuffled around. You might be head of education one year and head of agriculture, and then leading artificial intelligence. Best of luck. It looks like at least this guy has some kind of technical background, so that is reassuring. So you will see people talking about this new Pentagon group, and you will see people ringing alarm bells of, oh my God, what do they know? I think the reality is less fantastical. This is a committee getting together to talk about AGI and work out what they're going to do. It's a big question because we don't really know what it is or what its capabilities will be. So best of luck to them. Let me hop over to some questions. If I'm discussing something in ChatGPT and start a new chat, will that know what was previously discussing in the new chat I just opened so it can continue the discussion, but talking about different points about the same thing? Yes, if you have the persistent memory turned on. Settings, personalization, manage, memory, and click on manage. You can allow it to reference saved memories. So it will let ChatGPT save and use memories when responding. It will reference browser memories, so things that it has looked up for you on the Atlas. That's cool. I did not know that. That's really cool. And chat history, so you can go back and look at your other chats. This is what I find is really useful about ChatGPT, is that it knows all this additional context about you. This is why I use ChatGPT as my personal artificial intelligence. I use Claude for work, but I use ChatGPT for more personal stuff. So it knows a lot about me. It knows about my business, it knows my personal life, it knows my travel plans, it knows what video games I'm playing, etc. Because these are the kind of things I reference and talk to ChatGPT about, which means when I start a new search, it has all of that context already. Whereas with Claude, it tends to be a bit more compartmentalized, which is good if you're working on projects and you don't necessarily want stuff to filter in from your personal life. That said, Claude does now have a memory feature. It's just not as fully fleshed out as ChatGPT. So, yep. You can make sure it's turned on if you want to use context from past conversations in new conversations. And that's going to be in settings, personalization, and then down to memory. And you'll be able to toggle them all on. Or if you don't want it to remember all that stuff about you, you can say, don't do that and turn it off. If you don't want it to remember and you don't want it to reference in other chats, then you can use temporary chats. So you click on the top right, it puts into temporary chat. This chat will not appear in history, use or update ChatGPT's memory, or be used to train models. A rocket was sent up into space yesterday on StarCloud 1, which comes from this company, StarCloud, good name. They loaded a NVIDIA H100, which is a GPU, on board, and trained their first large language model in space. They used Andrej Karpathy's model, a new LLM called NanoGPT, which you can download. The simplest, fastest repository for fine-tuning medium-sized GPTs. Yep, you can download it yourself. You can run it yourself on a local computer because it's very lightweight. But they have just sent it up into space and trained humanity's first AI model in space. Very cool. And congrats to Andrej for it being his model. That's really cool. So we trained the NanoGPT model for Andrej Karpathy on the complete works of Shakespeare and then successfully ran inference on it. So they trained it and ran it as a model up there as well. We have also run inference on a preloaded Gemma model. This is Google Gemma. They trained it on Earth and then sent it up into space and ran inference on the model up there. And we plan to try more exciting models in the future. Getting the first H100 to work in space required a lot of innovation and hard work from an incredible StarCloud team because it needs power to train. This is a significant first step towards moving almost all computing off Earth to reduce the burden on our energy supplies and take advantage of abundant solar energy in space. Not Sun Snatcher, it's got a really cool name. Let me find the name of it. A lot of people are talking about this, about sending data centers into space. StarCloud? Suncatcher. Great name. Let me pull it up. The reason they're giving is limitless energy. By putting a data center in space and covering it in solar panels, you have 24 hours a day solar power because it's always facing the sun. You get more solar panel power because it's not filtered by the atmosphere, and you can basically have limitless energy up in space. Some critics have said we have a lot of sustainable energy we can still capture and use on Earth. We have a capacity to build solar panels, wind farms, etc. We just haven't done so yet. So why are you sending stuff up into space, which is going to cost a lot more to do? Which is a good counter argument. There's also the problem of cooling. So lots of people think space is cold, right? It's going to be a lot easier to cool these GPUs and data centers in space. That is not the case. There are three basic ways in which energy gets, I'm going to use the word dissipate, that's probably wrong, but energy gets taken away from the GPUs. So it can do it through conduction, convection, and radiation. These are the three ways heat can leave: conduction, convection, and radiation. Conduction and convection basically do not work in vacuum. There is nothing to conduct into. Ditto with convection, it's not being taken away. So your only heat dissipation mechanic is going to be radiation. So you have only one of the three mechanisms for getting rid of that heat. Dealing with heat in space is not as easy as it seems. It's not just space cold. We need a large mass and surface area to radiate this excess heat. There are engineering problems. It's also expensive to send stuff into space. So the critics of these projects are saying, why are you not just building solar farms on Earth? Why are we not focusing on sustainables on Earth? I think the best argument for this is sovereignty. If you launch a satellite, if you get approval to launch a satellite and you're up in space, nobody can mess with your satellite at that point. We aren't blowing each other's satellites out of the sky yet. Whereas if you want to build a huge solar farm, let's say in the UK or the US or France, Germany, the number of years you have to go through planning, getting permission, doing impact studies, environmental studies, etc. By the time you've got this built 10 years from now, everything's moved on. So China does not have that problem, and China are currently just coating any available space, especially in the desert, with solar panels and just ramping up their sustainable energy, whereas the rest of the West struggles to do because there's a lot of red tape behind it. If you instead stick your data center into a satellite and blast it into space, you cut through the red tape. Once you've got permission to launch a satellite in space, you don't need to deal with anything else because you don't need to deal with the fact that you are building on land in a particular nation state. So I think this is what the tech companies want: more sovereignty, control, and they don't want to have to bow down to governmental regulations about where they can build their energy infrastructure. They also don't want to have to wait for a nation like the US to build more infrastructure because it's too slow. Again, let's look at that China electricity generation graph, because this is what people are looking at right now and thinking, oh, this is going to be an issue. Here we go. This is from Visual Capitalist. This is almost worth printing out because this is the top power producing countries from 1985 to now. I've got Japan, Russia, India, the EU here, just going along. The US has gone from 3 terawatt hours to 4.4. And then this one is China. China went from lower the pack in 1985 and then ramped it up since the 2000s and is now at 12 terawatt hours. China generates more electricity last year than the US, EU, and India combined. China has the electricity to power their data centers. They don't need to worry in the same way that our older infrastructure in the West does. And this is in part why the AI companies and the tech companies we need to take control of the energy infrastructure ourselves. So far, the energy industry and the governments in these countries have not done a very good job. Companies like Google and Microsoft are looking into building little nuclear power stations next to their data center. They're looking at reinvigorating or bringing back online previous nuclear power stations. They're looking at sustainables and they're looking at blasting data centers into space. They don't need to rely on a nation state and the infrastructure of that nation state providing the power they need. Yeah, we're moving more and more towards our cyberpunk dystopian future where it's the corporations not necessarily the nation states who are making these kind of decisions, for better or worse. Okay, it is exciting though that we have just trained a large language model in space. Many companies are talking about blasting data centers into space. This is great news for Elon Musk, of course, because he owns one of the largest, if not the largest, commercial spaceflight company, and they have been for years working out how to take off and land safely and reusable rockets. Wind farms produce excess electricity, can be used to pump water under higher dams and release air. Yeah, the problem with wind farms and solar is the variation. So this is why something like nuclear is great, because nuclear can provide a steady source of energy. Wind farms, it's not always windy, and solar panels, it's going to only be sunny on sunny days and when it is daytime. So it means already you lose half of your capacity because it's nighttime. So this is one of the big issues with sustainable powers, is that they are not necessarily very consistent, and we need consistent energy. So we need capacitors, storage, and we need a grid that can help to balance that load. So they are very useful, but it needs to be part of a larger energy infrastructure. And again, it's just very hard getting anything done in a lot of Western nations, unfortunately. Okay, I'm having camera problems, which is very annoying. It's a very expensive camera from Sony that overheats. So if anyone wants to buy a Sony EV7 Mark II, I might be selling one soon. I want to talk about this tweet. I don't want to single out this guy because I'm sure he's already getting enough flack for this. A guy called Julian Tegelius. He's on Twitter. I'm going to read the beginning of this and let you make your own judgment. There's been controversy, but let me read this. So I was at an event on AI for Science, a panel discussion here at NeuroIPS, a conference. The panelists discussed how they plan to replace humans at all levels in the scientific process. So I stood up and protested that what they're doing is evil. Look around you. The room is filled with researchers, most of them young. They are here because they love research and want to contribute to advancing human knowledge. If you take the human out of the loop, meaning that humans no longer have any role in scientific research, you're depriving them of the activity they love and a key source of meaning in their lives. We all want to do something meaningful. Why, I ask, do you want to take the opportunity to contribute to science away from us? It goes on here, and there's a little bit later it says, one of the panelists asked whether I would really prefer the joy of doing science to finding a cure for cancer and enabling immortality. I answered that we will eventually cure cancer and at some point probably be able to choose immortality. Science is making progress with humans at the helm. We'll get fusion power and space travel someday as well. Maybe cutting humans out of the loop could speed up the process, but I don't think it would be worth it. I think it is of crucial importance that we humans are in charge of our own progress. Expanding collective knowledge is the most meaningful thing we can do. If humans could not usefully contribute to science anymore, this would be a disaster. No, I do not think it worth it to find a cure for cancer faster if that means we can never do science again. Woo! So this guy is basically saying, I don't want AI taking jobs from scientists because the process of doing science is super important and we don't want to make all these young people, all these researchers out of their job. Even if it means we cure cancer later, even if it means we get fusion power and we solve climate change and we potentially have the ability to be immortal. Even if these ends take longer, I think we should maintain the process of allowing humans to do the work. He goes on, it's a very long post. I didn't know you could go this long on Twitter. It goes on, a lot of people are like, this is evil. You are saying you want people to die of preventable diseases by removing AI and allowing us to work these things out ourselves. Instead, we could use AI to cure diseases faster, deal with environmental problems, to deal with a lot of the issues that we have as a species. But you'd rather not do that because you don't want to deprive these people of the jobs or the joy of discovering themselves. So some people have come back at him and said, this is horrendous. This is, what you're saying is evil here. And countless people will die because of this, if this were to be true. I just wanted to flag it up because it's a discussion that's going on in every single industry. It just hits really hard in science. Julian posted a year ago. He said, extremely unpopular opinion, earning a living through artistry in any domain, paintings, movie, dance, novels, etc., has always been very hard. This is a supply and demand issue. Lots of people want to be artists, few want to pay for their art. AI is not changing that much. So he was basically saying AI is going to come along and you guys in the art field are in trouble because AI is going to take your already very few jobs This is happening in science. Like AI is being deployed in research, which potentially allows research to be done faster and potentially means we do not need as many researchers. Maybe. These are the dynamics we're seeing across industries. However, in art, it's less we could cure cancer using this technology. So maybe we should be using it. And I see a lot of people talk about good uses of AI and bad uses of AI. And this is, in fact, something I talked about yesterday with that McDonald's commercial. I don't think it's a particularly good use of AI, but that's for me personal. Whereas curing cancer or protein folding, which AI has solved, is a good use. This is a discussion we need to have and a line we need to draw. For somebody to publicly say we need to cure cancer and push science forward ourselves, even if it takes decades, is the height of selfishness. Sometimes humans need to get out of our own way. We overinflate our importance. AI is the first technology that is threatening what it is to be human, to think, to create. Suddenly these things which were very much a human activity is suddenly not so much. We are seeing another entity, an alien intelligence that can, at our level or above in certain activities. That is scary for a lot of people, for good reason. But remember things like AlphaFold. Watch The Thinking Game, the free documentary from Google DeepMind. The second half is about AlphaFold. AlphaFold is an AI that can work out the folding of proteins. There's a competition called CASP. CASP is something else. CASP has been going on for over a decade, and every single year scientific teams from around the world basically get together and they have a competition to fold proteins with the most accuracy. They're given proteins solved, but nobody knows the solution apart from the CAS people. Teams have to fold these proteins, I think they have a week or so, and then provide their answers and they are scored. So you can see on the left-hand side, this is from 2006 to 2016, so about 10 years. The accuracy was around 30 to 40%. AlphaFold from Google DeepMind decided, oh, this is a problem we want to tackle. This is their first attempt in 2018. Blew all the human teams out of the water. They got to about 60% accuracy. It was still quite slow. In the film, The Thinking Game, you can see how disappointed they are with that. They're disappointed with the fact that their accuracy is still too low and it cannot be used practically. You need a score of about 90 before it's actually useful for scientific work. So despite blowing every single human team for the past few decades out of the water, the AI team are like, we need to do better. So 2 years later, they come back with AlphaFold 2, which it works incredibly fast. If I remember, it's like it can fold a couple of 100,000 proteins a day. Previously, they were doing 5 a day. But it's faster and it's more accurate. By the end, there's a scene in the film, The Thinking Game, where they've basically solved protein folding, which allows for the synthesis of new drugs. It allows us to work out things like creating something that will break down plastics, for example, so we can get rid of our plastic pollution problem. Huge numbers of scientific applications. They've solved that problem, and they're sitting in a meeting room and talking to each other. What do we do now? They're having a discussion. Release the data set to pre-approved people who pay us, blah, blah, blah. Demis Hassabis says, how long would it take to fold and process every single protein? There's about 2 billion proteins, so it would take about a month for AlphaFold to running on full power to just blast through every single protein in the known universe. It'd take about a month. So Demis Hassabis is like, okay, do that. And then release the data. They did. So you can download the AlphaFold 2 data. All of the proteins, all 2 billion proteins are available to scientific teams around the world as of 2020. This would have been cracked by humans eventually, but the previous 10 years, the human teams were not really making much progress. They were stuck at 30 to 40% accuracy. Then the AI team came along, trained the AI to work it out and to work out how to fold protein. And then within 4 years, took the whole competition. They removed the need for the competition because they solved the problem. And then they released all of their data. So when I see someone like Julian Tegelius arguing against the use of AI in science, we have to remember how much harm that can cause. If we have the ability to solve big problems like this, and we choose not to, so that we can make sure researchers have jobs, that seems like the ultimate selfishness. Yeah, it sucks if you're a researcher. It sucks if you're going to lose that job. And that's going to be the case for a lot of people in a lot of industries. But we have to not just think about ourselves. We have to think about everyone else out there, not just the people who are alive right now, but everyone in the future. So this strikes me as incredibly selfish. And a lot of people have been saying that as well. He's been defending himself. But I do not think it is worth it to find a cure to cancer faster if that means we can never do science again. Any counter-argument he makes after that, you try telling that to somebody who's had a family member pass from cancer. I think they'll tell Julian where he can stick his counter-argument. Adapt or be left behind. We, as humans, we think about ourselves. People scared of AI are in industries where AI is going to have an impact on their job, it's going to have an impact on their company, their industry. And they have every right to be afraid because it will take away their job. However, you need to think on the larger scale. You need to think about 100 years from now. That job won't be around. So what are you going to do? You can fight it, throw spanners in the works, be a Luddite. But 100 years from now, 50 years from now, that is not going to exist. So all you're doing is holding back against that tide, which is fundamentally for yourself. It's not necessarily a selfish act, but it is for your own well-being in the job. If your job and your role being removed can make everyone else's lives better, for example, curing cancer, that's a big extreme example, but as an example, then you have to get out of the way. Obviously, there are shades of grey. Not everything is as important as curing cancer, but a resistance for your own job and sense of worth is a selfish act. Interestingly, this connects to a guy from Pause AI. So Pause AI are a group who want development of artificial intelligence to be paused. They are AI skeptical, anti-AI. They're not Stop AI, they are Pause AI, slightly different organizations. There's a really interesting post from him here. So this is a guy called Aaron. He says, why is it that the American left is so insistent on making up fake reasons to dislike AI when there are a deluxe buffet of at least plausibly true ones for the taking? And he's referencing this image here, which is saying, are you using generative AI? Then you're prompting with Hitler. Gen AI is a fascist project. Try using your brain instead. Don't surrender your creativity to the tech billionaires' control. So bringing up the ghost of fascism and saying that every time you use AI, you are promoting fascism. So he's saying we have enough real reasons to worry about AI and to ask for AI to be paused or stopped. We don't need to come up with fake ones. And the fake ones he gives are AI is fascist, water usage. This is a huge one. People find the idea that pouring away a glass of water like this is the same as using ChatGPT. It is not. The water usage argument is a red herring, but it has become almost mimetic. It's become the thing that people share around because there was a bunch of videos of people pouring away a bottle of water and being like, haha, that's you when you use ChatGPT. Nonsense. It's not real, but it's a nice easy hook that people have connected onto. The real problem is electricity. Energy usage at the current margin. Yeah, the energy usage and electricity usage right now is very small. Data centers use about 2 or 3% of global electricity. Very small compared to everything else we're doing. Social media, Netflix, etc. uses more energy because we are using them hugely. Heating our house, air conditioning, good God, AC is massively electricity burning. We don't look at those things because we're uncomfortable about. So we don't look at the context of the electricity usage of AI because it's too uncomfortable. It's the same with water usage. When people complain about the usage of water, they need to also look at things like meat consumption. We need to look at how much water is used to produce meat because it is immense. You have to put any data in the context of everything else. Otherwise, it's an argument in bad faith. Water and energy costs. Currently, AI isn't helpful, which is big for me. When people say they're not using AI because it's not good, that suggests they used AI a couple of years ago. Maybe it hallucinated, made stuff up, and they haven't engaged with it since. They're using a free version of ChatGPT, and it gives them some crap answers. AI is incredibly useful, and whenever I meet somebody who doesn't get it, I think it is a skill issue. If you know how to use AI, especially for coding, building, creating businesses, you can do it at light speed. Anyone who hasn't worked that out, it's because they haven't experimented enough. AI can only do pattern matching and next word predictions. So this is the argument that it is just an autocomplete. It is, but then there is the question of what's our human brain doing? It's a lot of pattern matching and predicting what's happening in the future. We're able to fill in patterns, and that's where a lot of thinking comes from. This brings up questions of what's the human brain doing, because we don't really know the mechanics of thinking and consciousness. To criticize AI for not having what makes us human is tricky because we don't really know what that is. But that's not saying that they are the same thing. It's just, again, if you are going to make an argument against one thing, you need to levy that against the human brain, human thinking. And then fake problems, economic bubble. I think there is an economic bubble, personally. These are the fake problems. According to Aaron, AI is fascist, water usage, energy use, AI isn't helpful, and AI can only do pattern matching. And then he goes on to talk about all of the real risks. We need to get away from things like water consumption, which is like a TikTok risk. It's distracting looking at the things that are more memeable or better hook. The real issues, according to Aaron, existential risk might wipe us out. Sub-existential catastrophe and general misalignment. Misuse, so being able to deploy a local model and use it for anything you want, to create weapons or deepfakes. There are terrible things you can do with AI. People getting lazier and less intellectually mature. You can use it to improve, do more work, or to cheat, be lazy. Job loss is huge. Job loss is going to be massive, and anyone saying it isn't, I think, are burying their head in the sand. There's lots of people saying things like, oh, all technology has created other jobs, and so the jobs have just been replaced. This is different because AI acts as an operator. AI is not just a tool. It can operate tools. So it's a more direct replacement than previous technologies. OpenAI specifically, there are problems there. Sycophancy, engagement slop, the brightest mind is not working on other things, gradual disempowerment, making factory farming more efficient, bad value lock-in, so spending money on AI, not necessarily on other things, risk of war because of geopolitical destabilization. The GPUs are made in Taiwan. The big problem from a geopolitical strategic level, the majority of the GPUs are made in Taiwan, close to mainland China. There's already a situation there, a massive problem in terms of AI, especially as China and America are declaring AI to be of strategic importance. So it's problematic. Sentience, mistreating AI, etc. I'm going to post this in my newsletter because we need to be aware of the real risks. I'm not fully pro AI. I'm not fully anti AI. I'm somewhere in the middle, and I think that's where most intelligent people should be. We need to push back against fake problems. You will see them on social media. If I do a video on this later, there'll be people in my comments being like, it uses a liter of water for every query. It's made up. There is so much misinformation out there that it acts as noise and it stops us talking about the real issues with AI, of which, and I agree with Aaron here, there are a lot of real issues we need to deal with, but we cannot do that unless we get rid of the junk in the way. I'm going to hop over to some questions. Clothes production, textile production for water usage. Some people will be like, we need to wear clothes. Yes, you do. We don't need fast fashion. You don't need to wear a new thing every week. So ASOS and Temu and all of those companies that are just pumping out fabric production, that we don't need. Yes, we need some good clothes. We need to wear something. We don't need what we are currently consuming. Almond production, I did not know about that one. There's the alfalfa production in a particular river in America. It's become a political flashpoint. I think it's alfalfa production in the Colorado River. It uses water. Here we go. Major water consumer, accounting for a significant portion. It uses over a quarter of the Colorado River. The Colorado River is the Grand Canyon, right? Agriculture, mainly alfalfa, consumes 80% of the Colorado River's dwindling water supply. Yeah, this is in the southwest of the US, a dry place anyway. So if you're going to get mad about the uses of ChatGPT and AI and data centers using water, you also need to get mad about alfalfa production on the Colorado River. But the problem is people direct their anger at the thing they've already decided they are against. There's a book called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, which is specifically about this, H-A-I-D-T, where he talks about how humans like to think we're rational beings, but we tend to make most decisions emotionally. We make it fast. Malcolm Gladwell talks about in Blink. It's that intuitive, extremely fast decision. Also, Daniel Kahneman talks about the two systems, type 1, type 2. And you've got your thinking fast and you're thinking slow. Most of us make decisions instantaneously. We then slowly rationalize that decision. We've already decided, I don't like that person, or I hate AI. We make that instantaneously. We're not conscious of it. But then after the fact, we then rationalize it. So our slower rational brain kicks in and works out the good reasons for the reasons that support our emotional decision. We reinforce that by following people on social media, reading articles, watching TV shows, etc. that all reinforce what we already think. So this is what's happening in artificial intelligence. People have decided, I don't like AI, and then they will fit arguments in against artificial intelligence. People will also decide, oh, I love AI, and do the opposite direction. And anyone from either side, pro or anti-AI, will ignore any evidence to the contrary, and they will, supported by a bubble chamber, echo chamber of social media, go down a little rat hole and never be pulled out of there. Unfortunately, with AI, for the anti-people, it's just such an implacable force. It's just going to keep coming. And if you shove your head in the ground with respect to job loss, you are going to be the people who are losing your job, which is why you need to get ready for this. I've got something called the AI Readiness Challenge. It's a 5-day basic introduction to artificial intelligence, totally free. I'm not selling anything here, but if you do feel that you should be engaging a bit more with the technology of AI and working out where you sit with regards to artificial intelligence, and then you can find it over on aiwithkyle.com. From the discussions, you know that I'm not rabidly pro AI. I'm not rabidly anti AI either. I think there are good and there are bad things. It's grey. If that's of use, head over to AI with Kyle, and then you can get this AI readiness course. I'm trying to get 1 million people ready for artificial intelligence, ready for what it's going to do to our jobs, what it's going to do to our communities, what it's going to do to our incomes, because it's going to be messy. If I can get a few of you ready and in a good position, I'm going to be happy. So that's all free over on aiwithkyle.com. Go and grab that. Ben says, almond production to feed the Saudi horses. I'm amazed about the irrigation in Saudi of golf courses. It's a desert. You should not have golf courses. Grok says Sam Altman hasn't tweeted. What do you mean? His last tweet was the 23rd. Do you mean the one about almonds? Yeah, it's on OpenAI then, I think. Or the ChatGPT account. Let's have a look. Where is it? It must be the ChatGPT account. Do you mean the one about pasta? I saw, there it is. So it's on the ChatGPT account. He's been asked, Sam, what are you making? And he says it's going to be garlic in the pasta somehow. So this is a garlic reference, if that's what you're talking about. The American Southwest Water is feeding the Saudi horses. Alfalfa sending it for horses of almond production. How long until superintelligence? No idea. Anyone who says they do is making it up. Let's get to AGI first. I do think the argument that once we hit AGI, ASI comes shortly after is quite compelling, because once we have a recursively improving artificial intelligence, allow it to do its own thing, then it will probably work out ASI very quickly. It depends though, because we don't have strong definitions. Lots of people argue about the definition. I think with AGI, we won't know we've hit it until afterwards. And then we'll look back and be like, oh yeah, it was January 2026. That's when it happened. But at the time, I don't think we're going to be able to comprehend what has happened. And it's going to be a bit of a shock. Also, as humans, we're really good at moving back the goalposts. It used to be things like, oh, computers are smart and everything, but they would never ever be able to do something purely human like play chess. And then 1990 or whenever it was, we had the defeat of Garry Kasparov by DeepMind, and critics said, oh, no, that's fine, but they'll never be able to play Go. And then flash forward to 2016, 2014, whenever it was, Lisa Doll being beat by AlphaGo, and then we had AlphaZero, and then it gets pushed back again. Oh, okay, that's fine, but those are just games. It can't act in the real world. It will never drive a car, Waymo, Tesla, etc., etc. So we humans, what keeps happening is we keep defining what is purely human, and saying a computer can never do this, it can never create art, it can never generate emotion, it can never, but we just keep moving that goalpost back every time the computer does it. We'll do the same with AGI, and we're already doing it. Some people have said, oh, we've hit it, and others say we haven't. That will continue. Do you think AGI is overhyped? No. If we get there, it's probably the most important technology humanity's ever come up with. It will make the internet and computing seem like toys. The internet is basically training for AGI. So no, I don't think it's overhyped. There's overhype in the economic market. That's very different. So there's a lot of dumb money being spent on AI, like any company that has AI in the name, or they say we do an AI enablement or whatever, investors are throwing cash at it because it's the next big thing, in the same way that we did before the internet. But if we do get to the technology of AGI, that the technology itself is not going to be overhyped. It's going to be more than anything we could ever think of. And it's going to bring up really big questions about humanity and where we stand in the universe. Cool. I'm going to finish up. Again, I've got an AI readiness course, which is free. Everything's free on this website. There's a huge amount of stuff here. If you head to aiwithkyle.com, there is my face. Weird photo. I don't have many photos of myself, that's why. And if you click on start the free challenge, that's going to let you in totally free, as well as the course or the 5-day challenge. There are also like 93 playbooks. Each of these is its own mini course, about 10,000 words, so they're pretty chunky. There's a prompt library, there's a bunch of tools, there's a glossary, video tutorials, tool recommendations. You get the news, so I have the update on the news is on the website every day. There's a catalogue full of courses like the 10-week AI summer camp, helping you build a business using AI. There's a huge amount of material. There's a community where we discuss what's going on in the world of AI, and there's lots of people to support. So that's all available for free. Best way in is aiwithkyle.com, and then head to Start Free Challenge. That's going to get you in, and then you'll be given all of the resources. I'll also send you emails helping you work out what stuff you should be using. I also have the Freedom Operating System, which is about where you sit with artificial intelligence, how at risk your job is, what kind of skills should you be focusing on, and what kind of business or side hustle or consultancy you should be looking to set up in order to create another stream of income, so that whatever happens with AI over the next few years, you are in a good, solid, stable position. If you are interested in that, I think there's a button somewhere. No, there isn't. But join up to the free challenge, and then I'll talk to you about it in there as well. Awesome. Make sure you are signed up there, aiwithkyle.com, and over on YouTube, there are the edited summaries of these lives. Every day I talk about AI news and updates. Tomorrow I'll be talking about ChatGPT 5.2. We have edited versions on the website and stream shorts. It's a neater way to access all of the information. We've just crossed 10,000, about to hit 11,000 subscribers. Thank you, and see you